As promised, I am writing or making this video to go over some last minute thoughts about your test on Chapter 7. So, I'm assuming at this point you've done the practice test, and hopefully you've found your mistakes. I will, however, go through the test and, as I usually do in class, tell you the kinds of things that are the most common mistakes that you should be on the lookout for. First of all, writing each ratio in simplest form. Make sure you have the same units. If it's not in the same units, you have to transfer the thing that is in a bigger unit to a smaller unit. And also make sure that it is in lowest terms. All answers in math need to be simplified. Okay, so that's the first little section. The second section, and the actual test is set up just like the practice test, as usual. So, in the second thing, I would just say, make sure you keep track of, if you do a word ratio, like in this one, it would be, the word ratio would be freshmen to sophomores. Okay? A word ratio can help. Okay, but now we get to the meat of the stuff. In the fractional equations, if something is just one fraction equaling another, my suggestion is to cross multiply. In almost every situation, that is going to simplify what you do. Forget if you're doing the fraction destroyer. In the problem like 3/8 of x minus 5 minus 1/4 of 5x plus 3 equals 7. When we do the fraction destroyer, these are in protective shield. So what I get when I finish that is 3 times x minus 5. The x minus 5 is not affected. I could tell you that in person why more easily than in the video. 2 times 5x plus 3. And the most common mistake is forgetting to multiply both sides of the equation. I'm not going to finish that, but that is often one that is an issue on this test. And finally, the hardest one, x over 2 plus, 1 over x minus 1 is equal to x over x minus 1. The LCD is 2 times x minus 1. I hope you know how to clear the fractions of that. That makes this x times x minus 1 plus 2, and that equals 2x. As soon as I get this far, I need to notice that this is a quadratic equation. I need to get one side equal to 0 and then solve. I did forget, however, in the beginning, before you actually get rid of these, you need to do the restrictions. And the restriction is just that, well, 2 can never equal 0, so we don't have to worry about that. X minus 1 cannot equal 0, so x cannot equal 1. When I've gone and solved this whole equation, if 1 is one of the solutions, I need to throw it out. Then we move into stuff that should be reviewed this year. We have to convert decimals and fractions to percents. Fraction decimal conversions, I'm pretty sure you can do those. There's really not any tip I have for you at this point. And then the word problems are really pretty straightforward. Just remember, in percent increase or decrease, you need one or the other. If you use the change over the original, you need percent change over original. So actually, if you're going to use the percent change over 100, then you need to understand that what you will have solved for is the change. If you do the new percent out of 100, you will have the new price out of over the original. New needs to go with new, change needs to go with change. Your answer is not complete if you understand what you have solved for. The chart problems are similar to the ones that are on the, on the practice test. I think the most common mistake in the money ones is to make sure that if you're having a decimal point in your value per coin, like 0.05 for nickels or 0.1 for dimes, then the total would be also with a decimal point here. If we call the value of nickels 5 and the value of dimes, then we're talking about 5 cents, 10 cents, then this would have to be in cents. So be aware of that. And also, remember in the work problems, the equation is always going to equal 1. The part plus the part is going to equal 1. And when you multiply it by the LCD, let's say the LCD was 6, you also need to multiply this side by 6. On the negative exponents, I think we're on step 6, but I'm not sure. Negative exponents. If you do these problems that are on the practice test, you should be just fine. In fact, I'm really not even going to say anything about that. Just remember that x to the 0 power is equal to 1. Other than that, you should be able to do those just fine. 7, the last section is scientific notation. Remember, when I say your answers need to be in scientific notation, make sure they're in scientific notation. And do be sure that you know how to use your calculator for those. Again, I'm not going to give you specific examples for that because there's really nothing tricky about it. So, good luck. Do study. Make sure you go through these. If you can do everything on the practice test and understand what you're doing on that, you should be just fine.